to discuss what's been a topic in the U.S. press quite extensively, and that is the possible sharp landing of the Chinese economy due to the buildup of debt, overcapacity in industry, and a housing boom that's running out. What is your assessment? Are we facing a hard landing?
No, absolutely not. Yeah. Well, certainly the growth rate in China is slowing down from around 10% now to 6.5%. And like in the past, whenever there's a slowing down in the growth rate, people predict the coming collapse of the Chinese economy. And those kind of prediction has been proved to be wrong repeatedly in the past. And I'm confident this time it will be wrong again. The main reason I'm so confident is because those people predict the coming collapse of the Chinese economy because of slowing down. They attribute the slowing down to the internal structural problem in China. It's the main reason for the slowing down. And to me, yes, China has a lot of internal structural problem. As I mentioned, China adopts a dual-track gradual approach. Certainly, China retains a lot of distortion. There's a lot of structural problem there. However, the main reason of the slowing down is external and cyclical. And it's not so hard for me to prove my position, because you can look into other emerging market economies, and they did not have those kind of structural problems as people attribute to the slowing down in China. For example, over investment, for example, large ownership, large share of state-owned enterprises. They did not have that. But in the same period of time, they also slow their growth and even sharper than China. And the other way is that we can look into other East Asian high-income, high-performing economies like Korea, Taiwan, China, and Singapore. They are high-income, high-performing. That means they did not have those kind of structural problems as in a middle-income country, and they are high-performing, so they perform better than other high-income economies. But in the same period of time, they're also slowing down their economy, and even sharper than that. If you have time, I can give another 30 minutes talk to analyze that. But for this comparison, I'm confident. The main reason for the slowing down in China is external and cyclical. And if it's external and cyclical, then whether China will be able to maintain reasonably growth target will very much depends on whether China has, on the one hand, the ability to mobilize the domestic, social demand and to support those kind of demand. And for that, I'm also confident.
Walter, can I add just a word, which I agree that I expect China to avoid and prevent a hard landing. I can imagine a scenario in which it happens, but it would require a series of mistakes, doing things wrong and also not acting to prevent it. And I just don't, it's hard for me to see the series of mistakes needed to get a hard landing. And I also agree that the source of the slowing is largely external. And to me, that just highlights the need for the change, the continued adjustment for China to be less vulnerable to these sorts of external slowdowns. So to me, that's sort of a reason to go faster on the adjustment, just so China's not susceptible in the future.
I'd like to ask Justin one quick question. Are you concerned at all about inflation in China?
Well, no. Currently, the pressure...
not right now, but if they have to bail out people like they did back 2008 and so forth and provide a lot of bank credit, the M2 is growing by about, I guess, a little over 10%, which seems about reasonable for China right now. But do you think that the bank will stay on track with is inflation a big objective of theirs to make sure that it doesn't get out of hand?
Well, I think that it very much depends on whether China will be able to maintain reasonably high growth rate or not. Mm-hmm. If China can maintain about 6% for another 10 years and so on, then I don't think that what you worry will come true. Right. Because by the time the GDP may double. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, right here. Do we have a microphone? Oh, there's a guy right here. The other guy in the beige jacket. Could you
Thanks.
identify yourself?
Bill Jones from Executive Intelligence Review. My question is to one of the Chinese speakers here, either not Justin or Professor Chen. It's with regard to OBAR going forward. Because the announcement of OBAR in 2013, I think, created a new trajectory for mankind. The world before that was heading towards hell in a handbasket economically. But the fact of this, what has been called by U.S. Scholars the greatest engineering project in the world, far beyond the Marshall Plan, has created a tremendous amount of optimism throughout the world, Africa, Asia, Latin America. So we are on a new trajectory, but fortunately it's not limited to these countries of the Belt and Road. And the Chinese leaders have repeatedly reiterated that it is an open program, everyone is allowed to join. A great deal of optimism, of course, in Europe now, but the invitation has also been extended to the United States. The reason it's a new trajectory is it's globalization where development is in the center. The old globalization talked about development, but if you look what it created in these countries, Latin America, Asia, and Africa, and in Europe and the United States, it wasn't too much development because infrastructure really was neglected. So we're on a new track now, and the real question today is how is the United States going to react to this? Will the United States join and be a part of this? Can the Belt and Road become what we like to call a world land bridge in which development also is extended to the United States, where we need enough in infrastructural development? I'm encouraged by the fact that President Trump is very much interested in infrastructure. He talks a good talk. I'm not sure how he's going to implement this, but I think that is a grounds for cooperation with this great engineering program that possibly can become a benefit to the United States. And I would like the Chinese speakers to indicate how they would see this, the possibilities of extending this to the United States, this becoming maybe the center of this major power relationship that people have been talking about, which would bring the two countries and the world together in a very interesting way.
Well,
I think it's
Very
important.
happy.
We also probably hear from our American friends on that as well.
yeah.
So if you could be brief, because we don't have much time.
I'll be happy to respond. In January this year, I gave a speech at the National Committee of China, U.S.-China relations. And in that speech, I openly invite that U.S. to join China in the Belt and Road Initiative, because we understand that President Trump also keen for infrastructure investment. And the Belt and Road Initiative, the key ideas is infrastructure connectivities. And the U.S. and China are two most important countries. We should find a common ground so we can work together. Just like in the past, under the Obama administration, climate change is something that both sides agree on, and then we can work on that to play the leadership role in the world. And now, infrastructure is one area that China has keen interest, U.S. has keen interest, and we should work together and to play the leadership role in the world.
I want to ask Jim and Phil to comment on this too, but maybe just to supplement the question a little bit. Currently, are there bars to Chinese investment in the United States that be significant here, or is
That's what I was thinking about, is that my sense is that the Chinese capital is coming to the U.S., and the question that you raise, in some sense, is who will control the capital, right? And the capital in the past has been Chinese capital, essentially giving control to, control not in a evil sense or a bad sense, but Chinese investors have been more passive investors, and will Chinese investment in the U.S. turn to be more active? And I suspect that'd be a very natural change. And I look at other countries, Germany now, for example, is investing in very American-specific markets, in the grocery market, right? Sort of how much sort of on-the-ground cultural can you be then in selling people's food? And the Germans are doing very well at it here. So I would expect China to do the same thing.
Yeah, and do you really need any sort of formal, federal government to central government in Beijing connection in order to facilitate
Yeah.
Chinese investment in our markets.
Yeah, so it's hard for me to imagine the sort of the connection with the, One Belt, One Road at the formal level, but I would expect this kind of investment, maybe outside the rubric of OBOR, that investment to still to happen and deepen. It's hard for me to see it within the precise rubric that you say.
Do you have anything, Jim, on this?
No, my colleague, Christian Galuzian, just wrote an article for the Cato Journal on the One Belt, One Road that I would recommend. She's not an economist, but she understands the overall issue very well. And it's a hot topic right now, obviously, and infrastructure's a hot topic. The United States has a crumbling infrastructure. I mean, when you go to China, it's quite impressive when you fly into either Beijing or Shanghai or some other place. The beautiful new airports. You'd think, is this really a developing country, or And you go into Newark Airport or someplace, or Miami in the United States, the difference is spectacular. So we do need to think about what the best way to invest in infrastructure is. If the Chinese want to make investments in the United States, as long as there's not security problems involved, I think we should welcome the Chinese investment. They wanted to invest in CNOOC. CNOOC wanted to invest in the United States years ago in the oil area. The oil wasn't even in the United States. It was near Indonesia, I guess. And I had studied that pretty carefully. It had nothing to do with national security at all. So we want to make sure that investment is welcomed in the United States, and we don't set up artificial barriers against that investment. And I think we should work with China to decide how to do that in the best way. And of course, when you're working with private companies, it's probably easier than working with state-owned enterprises for political reasons. So as China has grown the non-state sector, I mean, the dynamic sector in China has been the non-state sector overall. Especially all the trading firms are basically non-state sector, many of them private firms. The banks are different, but I think we'll see more change in the financial sector. Things have been happening fairly rapidly. I was just in Shenzhen about a year and a half ago, and they're building a brand new technology center there, 2 of them in fact, both of which are going to be about the size of Manhattan. And that's pretty mind-boggling when you see that. And then you go to Baltimore and take the train up to New York City and look out the window and see all these dead factories and everything. So China must be doing something right. We should learn from China. And my friends in China say to me, what happened to the teacher? That is, before the financial crisis in 2008, China was looking to us for advice, but after that, I think their mentality changed a little bit.
Okay, well, at one point in his presentation, Phil threatened to drive us into Tom Friedmanism. So
No.
I don't want to go there before we end this panel, because it's been such a terrific discussion. I want to thank our panelists. I hope you'll join me in doing that briefly. And I want to invite the next panel to take the stage. So Dean, where is Dean?